Good morning, everyone. Welcome, or good afternoon, good night, or good evening, everyone, depending on what time zone you're in. Welcome to this Q&A study session. Today, we're just going to be having open Q&A. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or the Ask a Question section. Seeing that there's no questions, I'm just going to go over nationalism until anyone has a question, just so the people who are here can have something to review. Wait for that to load. Here we go. So I'm just going to talk about Napoleon, Bismarck, Italian unification, Russian reforms until we have questions in the chat. So Napoleon was Louis Napoleon was initially elected to a 4-year term. He believed that the government should represent the people economically. He increased the role of church in education, and he removed the poor people's vote. In 1815, he seized power in a coup. He had great successes with the economy, encouraged new investment banks, and formed a massive railroads. He fostered general economic expansion through two public works, one being the rebuilding of Paris. He granted the right to unionize and strike, which was previously not allowed, and he gave a new constitution, which combined a parliamentary regime and a hereditary emperor as chief of state. Alright, and so that's just France. Italy had never been unified, but it were just a bunch of competing city-states, and then 1815 it was reorganized again. And from 1815 to 1848, seeing the successes of France with the unified country, they also wanted a unified Italy. There were 3 approaches: a republic built on universal male suffrage, second being a federation of existing states under a progressive pope, and a third being an autocratic kingdom led by the 2 kingdoms of Sardinia and Piedmont. They went with the third because the first one didn't look good after failures of a republic in other countries, and then same thing with the second. So they went with the third. Steps for Italian unification. Sardinia was led by Count Camillo Cavour. He just wanted to expand in northern Italy. He didn't want to make it unified. So he made a secret alliance with Napoleon III against Austria. Napoleon didn't want to did not want to support him after they beat Austria, and he cut ties. This was going on. Nationalists in other city-states started revolts and took over their governments. Cavour regained Napoleon's support again after that, and then the King of Sardinia became Victor Emmanuel II. And all these small city-states, after taking over their respective city-state governments, joined with Sardinia. Then in the south, we have Garibaldi, who wanted full unification, not just northern. He tried to liberate the kingdom of two Sicilies with 1,000 men, called the Red Shirts. He was able to beat the royal army of 20,000 with his 1,000 men and march towards Naples. Cavour realized that if he took Rome, there would be a war with France, so he did not take Rome until 1870, and they didn't take Venice until 1866, and they created the Kingdom of Italy. And it was a parliamentary monarchy, but while it was still unified, there were internal divisions. Then we have German unification, and it was the Austrian and Prussians, and tensions grew as they both tried to take over the German Confederation. This was expanded by the economic differences between the two countries. Prussia had a weak parliament who wanted to make sure they had the power, and they didn't want who had more power than the king. And Italy's uprising convinced William I, the King of Prussia, that war with Austria was coming, and he wanted to prepare for war. So war measures be passed through Parliament. The Parliament rejected that, and so during the next elections, Liberals dominated, which was the Liberal-controlled Parliament beforehand. So William I appointed Otto von Bismarck as Prime Minister and told him to defy Parliament. He made a strong impression against the people. He lashed against the liberal middle class and defied Parliament. And as a result, his name at home wasn't like his his impression or his public opinion it wasn't great. And so to clear his name, he decided to have foreign war success. So he took Schleswig and Holstein, which are two German provinces that belonged to Denmark, and he used Austria as an ally when taking these two provinces, in order to corner them out of taking the rest, force Austria to lose, and so that they didn't take the rest. And with this, and he wanted full control of northern Germany, and he was able to force Austria to war. Due to alliances, France and Russia would have attacked, would have called war on Prussia. So he neutralized those two countries before an even larger war was created. As a result, Austria didn't like being shut out the war from Prussia, so they declared war on Prussia. Prussia used new technologies such as railroads and newer guns, and were able to easily defeat them. They offered generous peace terms because all they cared about was getting, which are more about Prussia. You're not allowed to interfere with our politics. You're not allowed to take over Germany. Which and no war reparations, etc. And Prussia agreed. And so as a result, then Austria agreed, not Prussia, because Prussia was the one giving those peace terms. And as a result, Prussia was able to take over the German Confederation without any interference. Next, he focused internally within Parliament. Bismarck created a new constitution, which had next he focused on the German Parliament, created a new constitution and a legislator that was popularly elected. And with this Parliament success, with this, he was able to have peace with Parliament, and he was able to get the military spending passed. All right, and then we have the Franco-Prussian War, and so Bismarck wanted the South German states that France controlled. And he also had support of the states. Those states wanted to leave France and join Germany, and so so they declared war on France. He was able to go as far as capturing Napoleon, but they kept on fighting. But eventually they won. And once Prussia won, Bismarck had unified Germany with William I, and he became the Emperor of Germany. William I became, to clarify. And Bismarck gave France harsh peace terms, which would be remembered for years to come. Next, we have Russian reforms. In the 1850s, Russia was an agrarian society. The Crimean War was a major loss, which showed how Russia was behind the other countries. Alexander II provided rapid industrialization. He increased military power and railroad expansion because one of the big factors was railroad. They used to have an advanced railroad system, but now that had become old and antiquated. And then Alexander II was assassinated in 1881, and Alexander III didn't do anything, which caused hard economic times. This new leader was Sergei Witte. He established high protective tariffs to protect industry. And then after that, there was the revolution of 1805, because Russia, thanks to Russia losing across Japan, and people weren't happy with their government because it showed how ineffective they were. So revolution caused the October Manifesto to be put out, which caused full civil rights and promised a popularly elected parliament. And so that's Russia. So, do we have any questions? Yeah. So, thanks to Alexander II, that was some catching up with German, with Russian. Yeah, it was always playing catch up, and then you can say because in World War II, you can say during World War II, Russia was able to save the other countries, provide necessary necessary help that they needed. So, and then you also have the Cold War, which was a big expansion within. I mean, that's not being tested. So, World War II and Cold War aren't being tested this year, but in overall European history, after World War II and after that, they definitely caught up. right? Because you have the Cold War, which was like a lot of economic, a lot of expansion, like military wise, and then also you have like during World War II, like a lot of catching up, like military wise, economic wise, they really didn't share that much. Especially like Cold War wise, like economic for like, the people, like the quality of life wasn't the great unless you're like some high elite. So like Russia had like large divisions or large inequality, but military-wise, yes, they caught up. Economic-wise, you can argue both ways. Wait a couple more minutes, but if we don't, I'll have to call the stream there. That's it today, is just a study session. So on the test, does comparison help? Does comparing the main topic to another event or series of events that happened in European history? So yes, it's going to be a DBQ. And so one of the points, depending on what the kind of DBQ it is, it could be like you can say it could be more of a compare and contrast DBQ. So that is one thing you can do. So that's something right there, like a compare and contrast DB. Like that's where comparison would play in. Another thing you can do is for your complexity point. You can, like a complexity point, like one of the main definitions is comparing that event you're talking about to another European event, or like word for word another event or series of events that happened in history, or it could be like in today's time, it could be much earlier, etc. It doesn't even have to be related to, like, let's say it's something about science, and then you compare something with military. That's another way to get your complexity point. So yeah, comparison does help. Yeah, I remember last year's DBQ was pretty easy. It was about it was more like I think like did the can't remember the name. Should know this. Mind blanking. Starts with an R. I keep going to Reformation, but it's not Renaissance. So it was like Renaissance focused, and it was like pretty simple. Like, did the Renaissance? If I remember correctly, it was like, like effects of the Renaissance today. I forgot like the exact wording they used. I'm pretty sure it's something like that, and it was pretty easy. So hopefully it's the same this year. How long would you suggest we spend reading the documents this year? Because yeah, you have 45 minutes and you have 5 documents, which doesn't make sense at all. Because like they took away what would be the 15-minute reading portion. So I would say 10, depending on how quick you are at reading, like depending on how, because it has to make the documents easier to read, because like it's going to be pretty hard, because if you have 7 documents and they expect 15 minutes, which is about 2 minutes per, right? Let's say, right, it's like almost 2 and 2.15 minute 2.15 minutes per document. And now that's what they suggested, like that's like the difficulty level that they expected you to be able to like understand it on. If they cut it down to 5 and you want to have that time, if they are the same difficulty, which I don't expect them to be, because otherwise it doesn't make sense, it would probably be a little bit easier to understand. I would say 7.5 to 12.5 minutes, depending on how quick you are. Like that's how quick I expect you guys to go. Like I would expect someone to do it. According to them, it should take, like, according to their standards, if it's at the same difficulty level, it would take almost 10.75 minutes. So I would say anywhere from like the 7 to 12 minute range. I always would read and start writing a little bit and then go back and then finish, like just confirm and then finish. And so I would only write, like for my DBQ, only for about actually be writing for about 30-ish minutes, which with this time, it's kind of like matches up. Because, yeah. I mean, yeah, it would make much more sense if they just did an LEQ and then allowed, like 5 minutes for submission, because I know that they're doing that for like some other subjects. These study sessions are pretty early for some people, especially on the West Coast. So I guess that's probably why we don't have that many people here today. Do you know how what we are going to submit our test through? So initially, on AP Classroom, they were using something called Lockdown Browser. So people expected it to be through that. But Lockdown Browser doesn't allow you, like, that's what we know so far. Like, for AP Classroom, for any test, they're using Lockdown Browser. We don't know now about Lockdown Browser because it doesn't allow you to submit files. And they said you're able to take pictures with your phone, transfer them to your computer, and then turn them in, which it doesn't allow. So we don't know. It's probably going to be something we don't know. According to College Board, we'll find out near the end of this month. We don't know. Like, they haven't released it. I would assume it's something that has like a lot of cheating prevention methods built in. And because I know for a fact, like Lockdown Browser, it can tell when you copy and paste something in, and it will highlight it and show it to the grader, even if it's like the question, or if it's like something copy pasted beforehand. Like, you copy pasted your notes, you pasted it in, and then you wrote it detects that and it'll like show it to the graders. So it's like, so I would assume it has like a lot of like those features built in, but then still has like like allows you to turn in files and etc. But we don't know. We'll find out late this month, and they will like post it. It'll probably be some College Board app like they create, but they said that they will post it by the end of this month, like late this month, and it would have it would have all those features, and you'll be able to like test it out, do like a trial test on it. All right, so seeing that there's no more questions, I'll call the stream there. If you have any more like last minute questions that you just thought of, drop them in the chat, and I'll be in the chat like the next 10 minutes answering lots of questions. I'll see you all. Bye.